Hey everybody, I'm Brian. This is Ben. Welcome to 4FTV, where we cover all things related to faith, family, fitness, and freedom. And today we are talking about quite a good topic. I know we get really deep sometimes, and we'll probably end up getting deep on this episode as well. But we're basically covering the top 5 reasons you're not getting results and practical solutions to move forward so you actually can get results. So Ben, why don't you just hit them with number 1?
You got it. First thing we're going to tackle today is unrealistic goals. Why they're common, why we have a tendency to set them. And again, we have several points we want to get to without getting into the weeds or an endless rabbit's hole of trying to unwind the human psychology behind this. But often our goals are influenced by this hyperbolic advertising and rhetoric that just perpetuates this. I was telling Brian earlier before we started the show, just this week I had this conversation with a client of mine that we oftentimes we wouldn't be caught spending 20 or 30 minutes watching a show or reading about what it is that causes us to procrastinate, what it is that causes us to not stay steadfast attached to some goals that we set for ourselves. But we will watch a 2-hour premiere of The Biggest Loser. And most of the times that we try to get ourselves in shape before springtime or jump on some diet program, summer, right? Exactly. It usually is, this well-packaged and glittery short-term sense of self-loathing. And it almost always, even statistics back this up, almost always ends up with us in a worse place than when we started within a couple months of ending this. And we will do that. We will commit to, chasing something that is lofty, that's unrealistic, that's not sustainable, and can be extreme. And I think a big part of it is because we have given very little worth, very little recognition, and sense of accomplishment to staying with the things that seem modest or minuscule but consistent, and we will give ourselves greatly to the things that don't last long but are extreme. So if you can kill yourself to lose 20 pounds in a month to get in a bridal dress, or before summer gets here, you can ask yourself why you yourself aren't enough reason to be your best self every day, and how we can get your mindset kind of closer geared toward that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that is something that Ben and I talk about quite a bit between our experiences in the fitness industry, working with hundreds, if not thousands of clients by this point. And the big thing is, the 1% mentality. And I know we've mentioned it on a podcast before, but the idea is if I got 1% better, if you got 1% better every day, that sounds minuscule. It sounds like nothing's changing. But by the end of a year, you would be, I believe the percentage is 37.5% better. And again, that may not sound sexy to you, but that's extremely huge growth in 1 year when you consistently get 1% better every single day. That would be like, the person that sets out at the beginning of the year to lose 100 pounds. It's like, man, you're already starting off on the wrong foot. It's not that 100 pounds isn't a good goal. Ben and I were just talking about that as an example before we started this podcast as well. There's people that have been like, I want to lose 100 pounds in 6 months or this year. And it's like, you can lose 100 pounds in a year. But what if you took 2 years to do it? Or what if you took 18 months to do it, where the progress was a little bit slower, but the actions got to be a little bit more simple and, dare I say, a little bit easier, because losing 1 pound a week compared to 2 pounds a week is a massive difference in food. Cutting 500 calories a day versus 1,000 calories a day, when we talk about sustainability, is a huge difference. Even if you're eating nutrient dense food, it's really hard to be in 1,000 calorie deficit every day for an entire year. That's just really difficult to do. And it can actually bring up the other psychological things around binge eating and looking for pleasure in food and instant gratification and all these other things we talk about. But the biggest thing about, and tying it back to, we won't watch 30 minutes of something to better our knowledge, better our faith. We won't read the Bible. We won't read, a Malcolm Gladwell book, or we just won't read something full of wisdom and knowledge for 30 minutes, but we'll mindlessly watch something for 2 hours. And that's that same sort of like all or nothing easy thing. It's like, well, 30 minutes sounds hard, but somehow 2 hours doesn't. Well, losing 20 pounds in 20 weeks sounds stupid. That's too slow. But when I commit to lose 20 pounds in 30 days, I destroy myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the big thing that we're trying to get across, because again, like Ben said, there's so much psychology behind this and there's so many different influences, but ultimately we just want to ask you, and if you feel comfortable, comment below, because we'd love, like we said, we'd love to keep the conversation going. But what do you think it is that has caused you to set unrealistic goals? Is it prolonging a pain and discomfort until it got to the point that you couldn't take it anymore and you wanted to step out of that pain as quickly as possible? That's what happens to a lot of people. Is it I don't know, Ben, maybe you can add to that. I mean, that's the one that really resonates, and now it's blocking me from thinking of anything else. But most of the time on unrealistic goals, I think it's we put off something we know we should be doing for such a long period that the pain inevitably becomes so overwhelming that we want to eradicate it as fast as possible. But the problem is it's very likely not possible to do that in the time frame that you're looking at.
Sure. I think part of it's that, and the other thing is too, is we have a mentality, I believe, and I don't know, I haven't traveled enough of the world over to know how much it affects other cultures, but here in America, there's no doubt we have kind of consolidated windows or seasons with a much greater emphasis on why our fitness is important, right? And as being in the industry, the fitness industry, you've seen it, I've seen it. January rolls around. Oh man, gotta get all this weight off from the holidays. You know what I mean? Oh, we gotta March, April rolls around. I got 4 weeks for spring break, whatever. And all of these things that, in my opinion, what they do is reinforce our predispositions to procrastinating. It basically tells us that it's okay, or even preferable, for us to just let go throughout this particular time of year, because we could just put on more layers of clothes and enjoy all of the sweets, treats, and at the beers at the beer gardens and stuff like that, or whatever it is that your thing is. And we'll do what everybody else is doing. We're just going to jump on that fitness wagon in January or February, March, April, whatever. And we'll get our goals, again, fast tracked to wherever we need to be. And our greatest catalyst, I believe, it has to be this shift to who we see ourselves becoming and why we're worth it every day. And like you've talked about, big goals in small pieces, almost like a microcosm of this bigger goal, or a macro portion of it. Until we break free of these cyclical windows that reinforce our propensity to procrastinate, we won't ever be free of that. So I think a big part of it is identifying the dysfunction within our culture that is both a product of, and then again also circles back to reinforce our tendencies to kind of put our fitness, like our fitness and our health, belongs in this window that's really focused from January through March or whatever it is, right? And it can't be that. As long as we do that, we're going to end up in these same dysfunctional cycles.
Well, and you called that the microwave mentality when we talked about it last, correct?
Well, yeah, that term's been used probably a lot since, I don't know, the 80s, 90s, but the microwave, our parents called us a microwave generation because they grew up without one and they didn't know what it's like to be able to just push a button and have something. So the whole, object, the whole idea of having to work a little bit to get something, even if it's just a meal, has been far removed. So we are definitely used to today. It's worse than a microwave. Today it's Grubhub. Today,
yeah. Today it's everything. It's not just the fact that we have instant microwavable food, but it's the fact that back in, I would say, our parents' generation and all before, you ate with your family. You sat down, you cooked a homemade meal, you ate together, you talked. Now the mentality is the Grubhub, the Uber Eats, somehow dining out went from a treat to
every day,
the way of life.
Sure.
And actually a home cooked meal is now looked at as what dining out was.
It's got to be
20
Thanksgiving.
years ago.
It's got to be Easter or Thanksgiving if it's going to be a home cooked meal.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and I think that's a good point to segue to into number 2, which is, you said you kind of hit on, having a meal made or having a plan. The second thing on our list is having no actual plan. And that's kind of where we have found ourselves with the endless conveniences at our fingertips, at our beck and call, is that we don't have to have a plan because we have everything we want right when we want it, right when we need it, right? And it's just a push of a button. And those things, if anything, those things, we think that that it makes life easier and better. But we do better with some kind of structure, all the way down to children. I mean, from adults down to children, we do better with some kind of structure. And you've heard it said before, aiming at nothing is a guarantee of hitting nothing, right? Or if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, all those things. And there are statistics that show, I think the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics reported that people who, initialize meal planning and increase their meal planning skills and routines were significantly, higher associated with odds of perpetuating or continuing that on and eating those meals at home that they made versus, food sitting in the refrigerator. And then you order a pizza, you order a Grubhub or whatever else it is. And we know without a doubt that it's easy, that it is more effective, it's more affordable, and it's better for us if we at least put together the majority of the foods and meals that we're eating.
Right. And to add something to that, because obviously, like, the lifestyle we live, a lot of people might think it's restrictive. They might think this, they might think that. But I think a lot of food has also been demonized, which to me is just crazy. The fact that like red meat, butter, oil, things that have been used for centuries are all of a sudden getting demonized, and we're encouraged to eat out, which what do you think they're using? And like at the end of the day, it's like, if I have a very healthy nutrition approach, using a little bit of grass-fed butter is really good. Because one thing I'll tell you guys is the saturated fat that's in red meat and butter, for men, especially if you're watching this, is vital to your testosterone. When you start cutting out certain saturated fats and just certain food groups and food sources, you plummet. That's why you look at like every bodybuilder that goes on a super low fat diet and they're cutting for a show, like their hormones crash. They become almost like infertile. They become like almost like they do become hypogonadal, but it's basically like a form of, and earmuffs if you're young and don't need to hear this, but it's basically like getting castrated to the point where it's like you can't reproduce until you're back to a normal hormonal health. And I just think it's ironic that I tell clients all the time, yeah, if you can, I would really like you to use grass-fed, grass-finished meats, butters, because they're higher quality sources. And if you think they're expensive, I'd like you to look at like your daily coffee, your daily, all the other things that you put money into, forms of entertainment, extra clothing. None of those things are wrong. But at the end of the day, like the first thing your money should be going towards is the necessities, the roof over your head, the liquids you're drinking, the food you're consuming, and the relationships you're sharing with. Everything else is a bonus. But again, when you don't have a plan and you don't have a program, it's easy to get caught up in the latest fad diet, the latest trend. Oh, I'm going to give up this entire macronutrient food group because someone said I should. Don't do that. Oh, I'm not going to eat certain foods, and even all the diets out there like carnivore, keto, I'm not saying they don't work in extreme cases. Keto is usually really good for people with autoimmune issues and certain like very specific health issues. Or Jordan Peterson and his daughter are basically on, I can't remember what she called it, like the wolf diet, where she's literally only eating like lamb. and like water and tea because of how many different autoimmune disorders she has and all these other complexities. But for the average person listening, you need protein. Everyone needs protein to build muscle. Everyone needs fat for hormones. And typically, carbs are your preferred energy source because they're easily digestible and able to aid throughout the body. But yeah, going in without having a plan, without having a program, I can tell you, even as a coach, there's times where I empathize with any of you listening that eat out a lot, because there's times where I'm in the middle of like client to client. I got to run here. I got to do this. I got to do that. Shit. I didn't bring a meal with me. I didn't bring a protein shake with me. What's my best option? And there's not many good options. And I'm not trying to demonize fast food to the point where it's like you're never allowed to have it, but you should not be having it that much. But it's like when it is my best option, like if you got a Chick-fil-A around and you can get the grilled nuggets or a wrap, or like if you got a Whole Foods and can go to like one of the like put it together yourself bars or whatever, like that's great. But I feel for you, because there's plenty of times where even as a coach, I feel hypocritical at times because I'm just like, damn, I did not plan my day well. And now I'm not going to hit my protein goals for the day. I'm going to be underfed unless I go out and eat. But if I go out and eat, I'm going to be way overfed. And then it's still not high quality food. And it's a ton of excess carbs and fats that are just going to like mess with my system, trigger, ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone for all of you. If you want an easy way to remember that, think of gremlins, little like monsters that just tell you like, right, I'm fucking hungry, feed me. But that's the problem with eating highly processed foods where the nutrients have been stripped out and other shit's been added in. It's like filler food. It's like drinking soda and you're just like, oh, well, I was thirsty, so I drank soda. But now I ingested like 700 calories of soda and I'm still really hungry, if not more hungry. It's because you're actually tricking your body into not realizing that you've even given it enough macronutrients and substance, because you've put so much other crap in your body that it's just spiked up. Your blood sugar is spiked up. Your cholesterol is spiked. Your blood, I think I said blood sugar already. Your blood pressure is even up. So there's things where when you don't have a plan and you work on eating out instead of eating at home, you're always going to be in this perpetual cycle of gaining weight. Sure. And it's going to be the one where like Ben and I are talking about, like you may, and this was the last point I wanted to make, and I'll let Ben go or we can get on to the next one, is we are not here to demonize you having a piece of pie on the holidays as well. We're not demonizing having the special meals with your family. We're telling you to be present. We're telling you not to eat like an asshole just because everything's there. If you want to try something, try it. If you don't like it, stop eating it. If you want to have that piece of pie, that's great. Like anytime you make a plate, if you can still fill half of it with protein and eat your protein first, your hunger is at least going to be managed a little bit better. And you're much less likely to pig out unless you're emotionally eating. And if that's the case, because we've talked about emotional eating and how families can be triggers, especially around the holidays, like we empathize for you. We're not telling you that you're a bad person. We're not trying to demonize anything you're doing. Just realize like, no, I don't believe in restricting yourself of everything during the holidays. I want to normalize not losing weight during the holidays, but I also want to normalize not eating like an asshole during the holidays, because then you gain 20 pounds of fluff and crap and you feel terrible. And January comes around, and even if you successfully lose the 20 pounds, it's not a real 20 pounds. It's a net zero. It's like you're losing what you just did to yourself. But then you have the rest of the year where if you don't have a program in place, you're still probably in a caloric surplus and you're gaining weight throughout the year. And let's say you gain 5 pounds every year and you do your plus 20, minus 20 dance the last 2 months of the year and the first 2 months of the new year, you're still gaining 5 pounds every year. And if you do that over 10 years, that's the reason you are 50 pounds overweight and you can't figure out what's wrong, because you don't have a plan and you don't have a program or an approach. So we just want to say, like, the comments about like eating during the holidays, enjoy your pie, enjoy your cake, enjoy your turkey, enjoy your whatever. Just like still be present. Work on the relationship you have with food while you're in front of all that food. Work on the relationships you have with your family. Set the boundaries if you can't be around your family during that time because they make you feel bad for not eating enough or for eating too much. Recognize those things. That's, again, more of the psychology behind a lot of the stuff too. And again, Ben and I will break that down in other episodes, but there's just so much that goes into this. But the biggest thing that we wanted to do with today's episode is just bring to light at least 5 of the most common reasons we see clients not getting results and help you with the solutions that we give them.
True, absolutely. And I think that too that the next couple of topics or points are very interrelated. So we're going to kind of go into those together. But falling off the wagon is, we have falling off the wagon listed right above not seeing results fast enough. And I think that those two are probably the most related topics or points, because the truth of the matter is, if growing food was really, really easy and simple, then everybody would be a farmer. Everybody would have a beautiful garden in their backyard, but it takes a little bit of work and it takes a little bit of understanding and knowledge.
And you'd get government tax deductions too.
Right, exactly. You might get fines and fees from the government too, depending on where you live. But the same thing goes, for working out and trying to establish healthy eating patterns and stuff. And that is that we have a hard time being honest with ourselves, differentiating between interest and commitment. And everybody's interested in getting in shape or looking good. Even people who tell you that they're not, they might be low key admitting that they don't have any commitment to do it, but everybody's interested in it. If everybody had the option of snapping their fingers or waving a wand over themselves and feeling healthy and vital and having a small waist and great shoulders, and everybody would be interested in it. Okay. But not everybody's committed to it. Not everybody finds the same value in it. And I believe that one of the biggest problems goes back to our first thing we talked about is, when you don't see results fast enough, or the thing that you undertake and start doesn't give you this idea of romanticizing the whole process, that it's going to be fast. You're going to, it's almost like relationships. Like, we all want to fall in love. We all want to be loved. And those are great things. But if that's the only concept you have of relationships, you will constantly be in and out of relationships with different people, and you'll be exiting and entering for the same dysfunctional reasons. That doesn't mean I'm saying you should stay in an abusive, dysfunctional relationship. But if you don't understand that these principles that follow other things that we do and sow and work that we put into something, if it isn't also reflected in the things that we do for ourselves with our fitness and health, then you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out big time. Because if I go plant something in my yard, I plant a seed and I go out there and water it and I sit there and stare at it, right? I stare at the ground. I'm basically setting myself up for unrealistic expectations and disappointment. And I could go out there for a couple weeks, few weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, right? And depending on what I planted and depending on what I'm trying to grow, okay, it might take a lot longer than that. And
you plant bamboo, that shit's going to take years.
Right. I was going to say, and some plants like that, the root system and what's going on underneath the soil is so profound that when it does finally start growing, it grows exponentially fast compared to other plants. But, either way, the point is that when we undertake something like this and we focus on why certain things aren't happening as fast as we want them to happen, we will absolutely set ourselves up for falling off the wagon. Because, again, going back to the first point, what's more important to you? What's a higher value system to you? Waiting till January to do what everybody else is doing, all the dysfunctional stuff that we set ourselves up for in these cycles? Or is the greatest catalyst to this decision of yours to get your health under control, is it rooted in who you see yourself becoming and why you're worth it? And if it's not, then you're going to be subject to the throes and changes of the weather itself when it comes to sticking with something,
Yeah.
And so that, tackling points 3 and 4, I think it's important that we understand that when we fall off the wagon, there's a lot to it. One of them is not seeing results fast enough. And then to get into the fifth and last point I wanted to make today is having no accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, if you want to start that, off again, we've obviously shared some stories back and forth with clients. We've had our own struggles. We're people too. We don't always get this right. We go through losses, we go through traumas, we go through things in life that knock us for a loop. And sometimes we undervalue the significance of accountability and having that structure.
Well, and I'll tell you one thing to go along with that. Everyone that's listening, what Ben just said is so true. And the one thing I want to point out to you as well, because a lot of the time we talk about things that are symptoms versus what are roots when it comes to issues. Accountability is a root. A lack of accountability is a root. And there might be a deeper root beneath that. But when we're talking about, number one, having unrealistic goals and having the microwave mentality, number two, not having an actual plan or program set in place. So you're never actually prepared, which, as Ben said, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. Number three, falling off the wagon, where it's like, I'm on this path, but I keep falling off and I'm not sure why, or I do know why, but I know I can always hop back on the wagon next year. And number four, lack of patience and not getting your results quick enough. All of that can be solved with accountability. All of that can be solved with accountability. Because guess what? If Ben and I are your coach, we're not going to let you do any of the previous four. If you have someone you're doing a program with, give each other permission to hold each other accountable. Give each other permission to not only cheer you on and support you, but to give you the hard truth when you need it. Because guess what? If I tell Ben, like, yo, Ben, man, I know we're trying to grow this business and I want to hit $1 million in the next month, he'd probably be like, you know what? Running $1 million business would be amazing, because that means we get to help so many people and impact so many lives. But I don't think you're going to get there in a month based off of where you're at. And I think if you hang everything on that goal, you're setting yourself up to really get screwed over 30 days from now. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying people haven't built $1 million business in 30 days, but they usually have the infrastructure in place, the marketing in place, the sales in place, the team in place, the operations in place. Number two would come down to, again, if I just say, hey, man, I want to make $1 million in my business this month. And he's like, all right, what's your plan? And I'm like, to make $1 million. He's like, that's not a plan. So to you guys listening, when you're like, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds. All right, what's your plan? To lose 20 pounds, Brian. To lose 20 pounds, Ben. Right. That's the goal. What's your plan? How are you going to achieve that? Have you reverse engineered that? Have you ever lost 20 pounds before? If so, what did you do and why weren't you able to keep the weight loss? Mm-hmm. If you haven't, do you really think the old approach that didn't work is going to work this time? Because insanity is believing that if I keep doing the same thing over and over, I'm going to get a different result.
Absolutely.
Falling off the wagon, if I tell Ben, like, yo, I'm going to make $1 million, or someone's like, I'm going to lose 100 pounds, Ben. And the closer and closer I get to that 30-day expiration mark, and I haven't made $1 million, and I'm getting closer to realizing it's not going to happen, or you're saying I'm going to lose 20 pounds in 30 days, and it's been 20 days and you've lost 2 pounds, it's really easy to just hop off the wagon or fall off the wagon and be like, this sucks. I can't do it. I need to go back to my old vices. I need to go back to being a victim. I need to go back to, just this online coaching thing is hard, man. Like, people don't get it. So I'm just going to sell my time for money, which I'm not hating on anyone that has a 9-to-5 job. I still run an in-person training business, and so does Ben. But our goal with 4F coaching is we want to be online because we want to serve way more people than we could actually serve in a given day
Mm-hmm.
for selling time instead of helping you get into a program with results. Same thing with yourself. If you keep selling yourself on the idea that I'm going to lose 20 pounds in the next 30 days, it's not realistic. And you're going to fall off the wagon every time. And you're going to start being like, I got to extreme diet again. I got to go keto again. I got to go like sub 1,000 calories again. I got to start, no disrespect to Andy Frisella, because I know he's helped a lot of people, but I'm going to do the 75 hard again. And I'm going to work out 2 45-minute sessions a day and have no cheat meals, no added sugar, no anything. And if I miss a day, I got to start over.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Sure.
like there's so many toxic ways to go about stuff. I think maybe Ben would be able to do the 75 hard, but I even know myself where in my mind, I'm like, the only reason I'd ever do the 75 hard is just to prove to myself I could.
Mm-hmm.
But even still is just proving to myself I can do something, which sometimes it's worth it. But just like when you talk to power lifters who have gotten to like, oh man, I built up to, like 1,000-pound deadlift and a 2,500 total between my 3 lifts, but my body's broken at 40 and I can't move. I'm like Ronnie Coleman. I'm wheelchair bound now.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them will say it was worth it at the time. It's not worth it now. And I would tell everyone not to do it. That's kind of how I look at 75 hard, where I'm like, yeah, of course I'd get amazing results because I'd be working out an hour and a half between 2 workouts every single day, not having any added sugar, no cheat meal, no anything. That's great. That is, to an extent, you're working on your health, but that's not a healthy approach for the rest of your life. And I do believe like if you have never gotten a goal that you want, you should never start something that is completely unsustainable. I think if you want to lose 20 pounds, learn how to lose 20 pounds in 20 weeks or 40 weeks. Lose half a pound to a pound a week and watch how simple it is to actually get that goal when you lengthen the time frame. Mm-hmm. And that again comes into point number 4, which is when our clients come to us and we're like, I got to do this. It's like, dude, you're lacking patience. I will not take you there that fast. Jesus walked. And I know we always have the faith component. So to those that don't know the story, there's still the idea of the resurrection miracle with Lazarus, where Mary and Martha are like, dang, Jesus, like Lazarus died. It's been 4 days. You knew this was happening because you're all knowing. You could have been here. You've been performing miracles over and over and over again. But you chose to walk and our brother died? Okay, I guess you know what's best. Mm-hmm. And he rose Lazarus from the dead. That miracle never would have taken place if he got there sooner, or if they had brought him to Jesus. It had to happen in the timing it happened for that miracle to take place. Now, I'm not saying you losing 20 pounds is a resurrection miracle, but it might feel that way to you because you've tried so many damn times and you can't do it. But what I would like to encourage you to do is, if you are lacking patience, I want to ask you why. Because again, it goes back to what I talked about earlier in the episode, and Ben mentioned it too, but it's like, if you want to lose 30 pounds in 20 days, my guess is you've been in pain for a long time and you're finally fed up with it. And I want to encourage you, and I want to acknowledge the pain that you're in. Your pain is real. Your suffering is real. And it's very hard to deal with. I get that. But I want you to also take a second, take in a breath, and I want you to really ask yourself, who's at fault for this? Mm-hmm. Not blame, not shame, just acknowledge the truth. You got yourself here. I'm sorry if you had a rough family life. I'm sorry if you didn't have a parent around. I'm sorry if relationships didn't work out or XYZ, man. There's so many things that could have gotten in the way in your development that brought you to this point, but you still had to make choices along the way. It's kind of like the story of the 2 sons that grew up. One of them became a successful investment banker, made millions of dollars, gave millions of dollars back to charity, and the other one was homeless, living on the streets. And when someone asked them both, why do you think you've ended up here in life? They both responded with the same thing. My father was an alcoholic. And the point of that story is, yes, things happen to us all the time. But instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what can I learn from this? What can I take away from this? How can I leverage this to empower me instead of make me a victim? Because if I grew up with an alcoholic father, I could end up repeating everything that he did and blame him for it. Or I could say, I'm never going to be like that. And I'm going to do everything I can to be different than that man. So I want to ask you, if every time you've tried to lose 20 pounds, you've tried to do it quick, could I encourage you to do it slow this time and do it right this time and do it one final time? And again, there's no way you're going to do that without accountability. That's why accountability is so big in our coaching. That's why ultimately, anytime you hire a coach, you're hiring them for accountability. Yes, you're hiring them for expertise. You're hiring them because, I'm sorry, any of you that are also buying cookie cutter programs, they're not built for you. They don't know your stress levels. They don't know your hormone history. They don't know where your metabolic levels are at. They don't know your relationships. They don't know your trauma. They don't know your past. They don't know your ability to exercise, your injury history. They don't know your nutrition protocols. They don't know what you're allergic to. They're just giving you a generic thing that should work for the average person if they have none of these other issues. When you hire a coach, you're hiring someone to know you intimately and personally, someone you can be vulnerable and honest around when you may not even be able to do that with yourself. And that is a level of accountability that drives results. But it takes you being willing to allow that accountability in. Because I could tell Ben all day, like, yo, if we're going to get this business to $1 million, if we're going to help 10,000 people transform their bodies, we got to start with one. And we got to deliver that result to one. And we got to get our ass moving on this program. We got to get our marketing right. We got to get our message right, because we're trying to permeate a market that's saturated with lies. And for you, you might be falling for those lies, knowing that, like, oh, I could get these results in 30 days or in 6 weeks. And it's not that you can't, but is it worth the destruction you're going to cause in yourself and potentially in others? So accountability is the only thing that will take you from unrealistic to realistic goals. You can have the big pipe dream. You still have to have daily actionables that are realistic. Accountability is what takes you from not having a plan, having this pipe dream, but having no daily execution, to saying, this is what I'm going to do every day. This is my goal for every week. These are my KPIs, my key performance index. True. Falling off the wagon typically only happens when you're on the wagon by yourself. Because if Ben and I are on the wagon and one of us wants to jump off because it's getting hard, the other is going to reach out and grab and be like, I got you, man. Lean on me. I'll hold you accountable. I'll support you. I'll be strong when you're weak, and you'll be strong when I'm weak. And ultimately, even with that wagon analogy, you know why most people fall off the wagon? Because the wagon hasn't gotten to the destination yet. Everyone's falling in love with, I want to get to this destination, and they forget about the journey. They forget about the process. If you can't fall in love with the process of getting healthier, if you can't fall in love with the process of, I'm going to have setbacks, but I'm going to have massive triumphs as well, you will fall off the wagon every single time. And it's going to be because you're not giving yourself enough time. Yeah. Guess what? If you're 18, you got plenty of time. If you're 30, you got plenty of time. If you're 60, you got plenty of time. The older you get, the more serious you might want to take it. But even when you're younger, do you want to be the person that's 60 that has the same mindset and mentality? Or do you want to actually build the habits and create the commitments and the discipline that build the life you want? And if you're 60, you can still do it. It's just going to be harder. But guess what? You're also going to be stronger and better and wiser. So you're going to know as well.
Yeah. I think the accountability thing is, I mean, whether it's you're alone, you don't have a structure accountability system that is supportive and strong enough, and you need the push, and you need the directives from a coach, that principle applies across the board to everybody else in your life as well. And you might be in a situation, and let's say you're younger, you're still living at home. You know, they've always said you don't get to pick your family, and there's some truth to that. But when we talk about auditing your social circle, what I mean is being willing to identify that not everybody riding with you is riding for you.
Yeah.
And that, you know, an endless amount of psychosocial studies have shown that we are a sum average of the 4 or 5 people we are closest to. And that means financially, that means relationally, that means, you know, all kinds of those things. I mean, it's the same. We get the concept when it comes to, like, you know, this person has a terrible addiction, alcoholic, they're a drug addict, and they just happen to hang out with other people. But those things run a lot deeper. They run into our interpersonal relatings and how we deal with conflict and everything else. So support systems act like a foundation throughout all of these storms in life, and like a lighthouse when you can't see your way through. And so you have to ask yourself, what or who is your support system comprised of? Do they have a track record of helping you honor your priorities and goals? You know, we're a limited resource. One thing I'm learning as I get older, and looking back at life and looking where I put my time and where I put my resources, our bandwidth, whether it's the time span of our life or our resources in one given moment, is not endless. It's not. Okay. So, you know, in kind of closing with this, with these several points of, you know, pitfalls, downfalls, and issues that are commonly plaguing, you know, you when undertaking these fitness goals and health goals of yours. I want you to think about this. You have 5 seats at your table, and these 5 seats at your table are the only voices you're going to hear and the only support you will get throughout this life. Okay. They are supporting, challenging, and celebrating you along the way to your goals. Or are these people running interference to all of those things that you're going after and trying to accomplish? And I know that there's more than 5 influences in our lives, but what I'm talking about is regularly assessing who is close enough to you to be in your ear and on your mind on a daily basis. You might not want everybody in your life to go hungry, but some people do not get a seat at the table. Some people get a to-go plate, and you love them, but they don't get a position in your life that is going to be very, very intricately attached to how you solve your challenges, your failures, how you deal with aspirations and stuff like that in your life that you're trying to tackle. I can't even begin to stress how important that is, because everybody around you, whether you acknowledge it or not, or believe it or not, is influencing you on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, 100%. And I know that may be a hard message for some of you. And I know personally, I've battled with what almost feels like a false sense of loyalty. So if there's any of you that feel like, but that's my family, that's my best friend, I've known them for 30 years, dude. I know. But if you've known them for 30 years and you're still in the same struggle and you still feel the same way when you're around them, and they still act the same way they have for 30 years, it may be time to push that seat back into the table. It may be time to let someone else sit there. It doesn't mean you don't love that person. It doesn't mean you don't care for them. It doesn't mean you stop praying for them. It means you say, hey, for this season, I got to look out for myself. I got some things I need to take care of. I got some aspirations, some big old goals I'm going for. And only way I'm going to do that is by refreshing, hitting the reset, starting anew. And unfortunately, that just means we're going to hang out less. And you know what? The only reason that person will get mad or upset is because of the accountability that you just laid out for them. You'll let them know, I'm trying to do something better And if you want to do that, you can still pull up a seat. But there's new expectations. Let's say there's new standards, not expectations. There's new standards that I'm going to live my life by. There's new standards that you're going to need to live your life by. And if you're down to do that, I'm down to keep growing together. But if you're not, I wish you nothing but the best. We're still going to see each other. I'm just not going to hang out with you every day. I'm not going to spend hours with you every day when I could be spending hours on my business. I could be spending hours on my faith. I could be spending hours impacting other people's lives, the youth, the next generation of leaders. I could be serving my clients even better. I could be serving my workplace even better. I could be serving my family better. How many of you have relationships that get in the way of being better for your family? Being a better husband, being a better wife, being a better father, being a better mother, being a better son, being a better daughter. So I completely come into accord with my brother Ben. There's times where it's hard, man. I get it. But there's something I heard recently, which I'll leave you guys with as well, where we need to start valuing truth over sincerity. You can be a very sincere person and you can be sincerely wrong. And you can be sincerely toxic. You can be sincerely evil. There's a lot of things where it doesn't matter if someone's sincere. Understand what they're sincere about and towards. Because if they're sincere about staying loyal to you at all costs, no matter what, and if that's what your sense of sincere loyalty is, you are sincerely going to fail. You are sincerely going to stay where you are. You are sincerely not going to take up that next level of transformation you're looking for because you're stuck in a false sense of loyalty. And ultimately, that person that you set the boundary with, the only reason they're upset is one, they don't know about boundaries. They don't exercise their own boundaries. Two, you're trying to do something that maybe they've wanted to do and they've never voiced their opinion, or they're too scared to take the next step like you are. And three, they're comfortable where they're at and they want to keep you at their level because they're afraid of what life without you would be like, but they're not willing to step up with you either. So those are a lot of things to think about and to chew on this week. But we're definitely going to wrap up the episode here. We hope that you found this episode just extremely invaluable. If you did, you know the deal. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and turn the notification bell to all. We're putting out one full episode a week. We might start breaking down the episodes into smaller segments. This one's a perfect one to be able to do that with. To make it a little more digestible for some of you who don't have a full 45 minutes or an hour. We get it. But we also want to hear from you in the comments. Let us know how we can serve you, how we can help support you, how we can help you set realistic goals, how we can help you with a plan, how we can keep you from falling off the wagon, and how we can get you more patient. Everything we just said, we want to hold you accountable, and we want to be a part of your 5-seat accountability table. We would love to do that. Ben and I can share a seat if you need 4 more for everyone else. But ultimately, just remember, you got to have patience. You got to have love for yourself, for the people around you. You got to serve. You got to also raise your standards. And that's probably going to hurt some people's feelings, but you have to raise your standards to the level that your goals are demanding of you. You can't have $1 million goal and a minimum wage standard of living. It will never get you there. So make sure that you are doing what's best for you and the purpose you've set out to in life. Because ultimately, the right people will come alongside you the more clear you get on your goals and your standards, and the more accountability you're willing to give and receive. So I'll let Ben have the last few words before we sign off here. If anything, Ben, like, say whatever you're going to say, but also, like, what do you think is the most practical step we can give someone leaving right now?
I don't know if there's really just one step. This is how I feel when my kids just hit me randomly with, like, Dad, what's your favorite movie ever? Man, I ain't got one favorite movie. That's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. What's your one favorite food? Anybody who knows me knows that I don't have one favorite food.
Impossible.
It's absolutely impossible, man. I might have like 5 favorites or something like that, but definitely not one. I would say, and this is just me, I would say that the relationship aspect, the accountability aspect is the biggest. And the reason I say that is because we are social creatures. Even the people that, are introverts, I'm more of an introvert myself. I value and appreciate relationships that are, that are close and a mile deep over an inch deep and a mile wide. And so even being more of an introvert myself, I know that when I was going through some of the most difficult things that I've gone through, when I had structure, when I had a plan, when I had enough knowledge in my head to do what I needed to do, but everything else was just battering me like a terrible storm at sea in a small boat, and you're just getting hit from all directions. The people in your life, the things you set up in your life as some construct of both security and accountability, I believe has probably the greatest influence. And, for some of you, that honestly, this will probably be the hardest part, because for some of you, like Brian said, earlier, when this person's been my friend for 30 years, I've known him since high school, whatever. Not everybody who has part in your history is somebody who's going to have the same part in your future. And that's okay. That's just life. That is life. We are this complicated array of things that we are both predisposed to, and active decisions and choices we make with the things that we're given. And we don't all make the same choices, and we do not all have the same priorities. So I would say, if you're on the precipice of making a decision for yourself that is best for you, is good for you. And for some of you, it might, I want to speak to the people out there too, who think like, why I've been back and forth with getting my health under control. And for other people, it seems so easy. And for me, it's ridiculous that it's taken this long, or I've let myself go this far and stuff like that. And I just want to say that it's not something to compare yourself to other people with. It's just something you need to decide whether or not it's worth it to you. And once you decide that it's worth it, you have to count the cost without really taking the time to count all the costs. What you've got to do is just make the decision. And once you make the decision, everything else that doesn't line up with getting you where you need to go gets allocated to a different position or priority in your life. And a big part of that is relationships. And it might be as simple as this. And I had a client, we don't often use names in all of our success stories, and we won't use them in our examples of bad things either. But I had a client years ago who really needed to get her health and life under control. And within a month, she had lost like 20 pounds. And to be honest with you, she hadn't even really put in place everything that she needed to put in place. Not crash dieting, not keto. She just was very unhealthy, had a lot of, unhealthy inflammation and fluid and everything else like that too, that she lost in addition to losing body fat. But the point is, even still trying to get all the parts of the machine operating, she had lost a tremendous amount of weight and already was feeling better. And she ended up finding out that a few of her so-called friends were not really happy with the amount of time that she was spending at the gym. And more specifically, they weren't happy that 3 or 4 nights a week she wasn't going out to have drinks and food with all of them and picking up the tab like she always did. And it was a large point of contention because, she already had self-esteem issues. She had issues that a lot of us deal with. And these were her so-called friends, and that's why, I said before, there's not a very big difference, subjectively between a friend and a parasite. It's objective, meaning they both want to be close to you, but one of them has very different intentions than the other. And she was really struggling with this. And unfortunately, she ended up kind of falling off the wagon for a few different reasons. But one of them was this sense of guilt, very much lack of support from the people that should have been cheering her on the most, because it's like, hey, like you disrupted like our little, like, a circle of fun here. And so I have seen many examples of that. That was probably one of the more blatant examples I've seen that really had an effect on influencing somebody, poorly in their decisions. But yeah, for me, I think out of all of them, in my experience, what I've seen is the people that you choose to have closest to you are going to have an incredible effect in either direction, that you take on your goals.
That's good. So what I'll leave you guys with listening is, whether it's today or in the next few days, give yourself an hour, at least 30 minutes. Give yourself a solid 30 minutes to yourself and just write out those goals. Write out the goals. And even if they're unrealistic, write out your goals and then break those goals down into realistic micro goals or atomic habits, as we've talked about before, where it's just, what are the little things I can do on a daily basis that will get me closer to the goal? It's probably hitting daily protein. It's probably hitting your workout or daily steps. It's probably getting to, like, having a set bedtime and wake time is extremely critical as well. But write down your goals. Write down your goals that you have, and then create a plan around it. Create the plan of what small step can I take today? Focus on one thing. What can I take today to move forward towards this goal? And then I want you to go into, now, out of those goals, what standards need to be raised? Because again, if I have $1 million goal and I have a minimum wage work ethic, I'm never getting there. Something has to change. The standard has to change. If it's waking up early to work out because at the end of the workday you won't, do it.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be
True.
hard. Do it. You're either staying with the same hard where you're unsatisfied and unhappy with where you're at, or you struggle with the short-term hard of changing your habits and raising the standards that will eventually become unconscious behavior to you. And then I want you to give yourself a realistic timeline, and I want you to think about, draw out a table of 5 seats. You're at the head of the table. Who are the other 5 seats around you?
Mm-hmm.
And again, you can make a seat for Ben and I. We'll share a seat, but
Right.
Who are the people directly in your life right now? Family, friends, role models, mentors, whoever it is. Who are they? Who do you need to actually ask to step out of the seat so you can make room at the table for someone else?
Mm-hmm.
Like Ben said, you'll still make them a meal. They get the pickup, the takeout, the drive-by meal. They don't get the sit-down meal.
Right.
You get to see them once a week, every other week, once a month, catch up. How you doing? How's everything been?
Mm-hmm.
They don't get the daily access anymore.
Right.
Really think about that. I know it's going to be difficult, but the more you put off this difficult decision or this difficult time to create decisions to move forward, the harder it's going to get for you. The more emotional it's going to get, the longer it's going to take. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
That's right.
Plant that seed today. And until our next episode, I just want to thank you all for tuning in. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave any comments, questions, concerns. We will get back to you. And until then, thank you again for watching 4FTV, where we talk all things faith, family, fitness, and freedom. And I just want you all to stay blessed, stay humble, stay hungry, and I want you guys to raise those standards this week, all right? See you next week.